Star Trek 57, M23, take 2.
It's got Star Trek. Episode 77. Enterprise, Season 2, Episode 2. Carbon Creek.
Perhaps if you spent more time observing human behavior, you might not have such a pessimistic view of them.
Open your eyes. They revel in violence. They devote what little technology they have to devising ways of killing each other.
So did we centuries ago. They just haven't realized their potential yet.
What potential?
They have great empathy and compassion. Look how we've been made to feel welcome.
Only because they believe we're human. If they discovered the truth, do you think they'd be so compassionate?
Would you like to start us off, Dan, with the podcasting?
Dan's ready for podcast.
Dan's always ready for podcasting. He often will have a non sequitur, and then, we can podcast.
Do you ever because it takes place in Carbon Creek? Mm-hmm. Do you ever call it Penisvania? Penis vein, yeah.
Penis vein,
because it's Pennsylvania?
Yeah. Do you ever say that? Do you ever say penis vein, yeah?
No.
It's Sylvania. It's not Vania.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's not a perfect
Pennsylvania, like a pencil.
Well, that's how wordplay works. So it's not going to be a perfect replication of the original sound of the word.
Touche, Dan.
Well, I mean, I guess there may be different philosophies on wordplay. What is your philosophy on wordplay?
I think that sometimes I say Penisvania, and when I think of Pennsylvania, that's my thought.
Okay, fair point.
Carbon Creek.
I think more about pencils.
Yeah,
pencils.
I think more about pencils as well.
But that's not as fun.
And then Transylvania.
But then you can't. There's no such thing as a pencil vein.
Isn't that like the graphite going down the middle of it?
No.
Like a short vein.
That works.
But nobody says that.
Yeah, but it's not
But you could.
But nobody does.
It's not Pennsylvania. It's pen. The pen, as in the name pen, and Sylvania, which I presume is related to forests and elves.
Oh yeah,
and
like
shit.
a sylvan.
Like a sylvan
that
elf.
doesn't
It's
matter.
Penn's Woods.
That doesn't matter.
Pennsylvania is Penn's Woods.
It doesn't matter.
There's a number of different contexts in which you can use the word penis freely without, you don't have to force it.
I'm just saying, I don't think it's forced at all because it's penis vein.
Penisfulvania.
Pennsylvania. Penis vein.
Penisfulvania.
Pennsylvania. Penis vein. Pennsylvania. Penis vein. It's like the same fucking thing. I don't know what you're arguing about.
This is not an argument, it's a discussion.
No, I don't know what you could think, how you could think it doesn't sound anything like
I'm not really defending a proposition on this end. I'm not criticizing you. I'm offering an alternative perspective.
Do you say Pennsylvania often, Jesse?
No, not until tonight.
All right. Welcome to the It's Got Star Trek podcast, which is primarily about Star Trek. Episode 77, I believe, which is a nice number, I would say. What do you think?
I like that one. It's good.
It's fine.
It's 2 sevens.
All right. So episode 77 of the podcast. We are veterans of the podcast world, as you can tell by the fact that we've done this 77 times. Carbon Creek is the episode we're watching. The show is Enterprise, and the season is season 2, episode 2. I got there in the end, work backwards.
And it was from 2002.
Yes, season 2, episode 2 from 2002. For all you numerologists out there, you can write us in at feedback@itsgotstartrek.com
19 years ago.
to let us know if that means anything. I mean, we know it doesn't, but if you perceive that it does, please let us know, because we would enjoy that.
I had a penny from 1975. How much do you think it was worth?
A penis penny?
Yeah, it's a penis penny.
A penis penny?
A penis penny. That's exactly the same as penis vein. You're right. Thank you.
It's not exactly the same.
I've got some of those steel pennies from during the World War II when they had to save the copper.
What about the quarters? They say the quarters before 1976 or 67 or something. Some old quarters.
Something like that.
The rumor is, or the factor, I don't know. I always heard people say that's all those quarters were filled with silver. They were all silver or quarterly or whatever.
Did you learn that in 5th grade?
I don't know. It was
in the hallway.
No, it wasn't some kid
Back
trying to
in
like touch me or
1990.
anything. Like,
That's not where I was going. I just thought it was. I just thought it was, the normal thing kids say is like, "Hey, Dan, did you know?"
Kids
Yeah,
talk about
it
kids talk about coins.
Kids talk about all sorts of shit. We usually talk about Star Trek.
Yeah.
We should start talking about.
okay,
Star
well, I
Trek.
was just saying that. No, I heard it as an adult that the quarters from a certain era were made with silver, and then they
Oh,
stopped
yeah,
doing
yeah.
that now.
Totally.
So they were worth more.
I think all coins were silver.
Well, I think quarters is
Silver dollars.
From about like
Silver, yeah.
you know.
Well, I bet silver dollars are
the
still
16th
silver.
century on. I think.
Maybe not though. Okay, yeah.
Well, I mean, I will grandfather this in, considering that there is mention of quarters in this particular episode of Star Trek, because they play pool for quarters. That fella
Hell yeah.
And they
wants to
sl-
play
and they-
a quarter a ball.
and they have sleeping quarters.
Mestral.
Sleeping quarters. All right, that's wordplay.
Wordplay.
I get it.
Yeah.
I get it. That's
This guy's got the wordplay tonight.
Well, why?
That's some left brain shit right there.
What was the deal with?
Left brain shit is bullshit, but you know,
Yeah.
you know what I mean. Colloquially left brain.
I know where you're getting at.
Yeah, you know where I'm getting at.
Picking up what you're putting down.
Penis Sylvania.
So it wasn't
Pennsylvania.
Tamir. Sorry, not to Paul. Tamir.
Tamir.
Which is
This is going to trip us up this whole episode, I guess.
yeah, with T'Pol's second foremother, which means mother's
almost
mother's
the
mother's mother or great grandmother. Trip question to Paul's math. Like about like he's like, wait, aren't you missing a generation or two there or whatever he said? And then Archer's like, remember, Trip, Vulcans live a lot longer than humans.
They
which
were
is
like
just like
annoyingly dumb in this episode.
yeah, that was just like it's
Both
like
of
they're,
those guys.
in case the audience forgot how Vulcans work,
Yeah.
or if you're a first time watcher or
This
something.
is the first
but-
time I've ever seen Star Trek. before.
Yeah, right. So was this episode? So.
I got to say, it would be an interesting episode to watch if it was your first time.
Because that dude would have probably been on Earth until what, like 2100 or something.
Something like that, at least, right?
Yeah, he was talking about that he was going to go through. But what was the trip? Was like
Mestral.
He would have gone through 30 presidents.
30
Yeah,
presidents.
that's hilarious. Like he thinks there's going to be 30 presidents from the 50s on. Come on.
That'll be one of those classic Star Trek predictions that in the future looks silly.
Yeah,
In the future post-apocalyptic wasteland, they'll
Like,
be like,
actually, America crumbled to pieces.
they're like, they got World War III right, but they didn't. We didn't get 30 presidents.
So
50 presidents and 7 kings.
Ooh, a little too close to home.
I know, right?
so playing quarter a ball, and this is when Tamir, she's dumb because she's like she thinks it's logical to starve instead of letting Mestral earn money by playing pool because it might mean she would have to have a drink with some dude.
And then Mo didn't want to eat the fucking deer.
Yeah, he didn't exactly. He didn't want it. He didn't want it because it was resorting
guy.
to savagery. And like both times, Mestral was like the emotional, humanistic one, and he was the logical one. Is like saying like, no, we got it. Would you rather die? And then for both instances, one was eating meat, and the other was like, you can have a fucking drink with a guy if it means we're not going to starve to death.
Yeah.
Like, get the fuck out of here with that. So
It's
Mestral.
funny that they couldn't find somebody's like vegetable patch somewhere, or like
Yeah, they should have found.
like a farmer's market, or I mean, I don't know what it was like in the 50s.
They didn't have farmers markets.
They
They just
probably
had,
didn't have- yeah,
they
they
had
had farmers.
farmers.
farmers and farms.
They just had a bunch of farmers.
They didn't have like banana bread and zucchini bread.
Banana boats.
He thought TV dinners were cryogenic.
That was great.
Yeah.
Oh, but getting back to Mestral, what I enjoyed that initial scene where they crash and we're told that they've been out of rations for 5 days.
The
and then
the refusion pressure was still dropping, which is why they crashed.
Yeah. Well, important point to make. Thematically important. But one thing that was nice about that scene in terms of just how well crafted it was, that conversation where T'Pol and Strawn are not interested in eating the deer, right? They're kind of disgusted by it. So they're
You mean Tamir and Strawn?
Tamir. Thank you.
That's
I
his
told
name.
you I was going to mess this up this
Yeah.
entire episode.
And it's
Tamir-
even spelled like T''MIR.
And she looks just like T'Pol.
Yeah, it's weird.
So
It's
Tamir,
funny how that the resemblance is uncanny.
yeah, Tamir and Strawn are sort of revolted by the idea of going against their vegetarianism.
They're not going to be able to digest that.
And Mestral is the one, as you note, suggesting, well, come on. like we don't want to just be dead here. This would be a problem too.
But he's the illogical Vulcan, according to that.
But what they're doing character-wise is they're setting us up to understand that Mestral, he's already divided from the standard Vulcan perspectives, right? We are introduced to him. He's immediately when we see him, first he says they should kill the deer and eat the meat because it makes sense to survive. And immediately after that, he's saying like, I'm just going to go fucking walk to town then.
Yeah.
You assholes won't let me eat this fucking deer. And both of those are sort of going against the cultural philosophy that we've learned about, as we understand it from the context of Enterprise for Vulcans, against the vegetarianism and they're supposed to, theoretically, they're supposed to hide themselves and die rather than find a way to survive a little bit longer to wait for rescue. So we see Mestral throughout the episode taking decisions that sort of go against what you might expect the normal Vulcan. One thing that I like about that is that and this is, Enterprise was good at this, was showing us more diversity within Vulcans in terms of their personalities and all that other stuff. They're a little bit less, because Mestral does not have that Vulcan arrogance. I was like racking my brain trying to figure out what is it about this guy that's different. It's not just that he's curious. We've seen plenty of curious Vulcans. There's something about him that's a little bit different, and it seemed to be the arrogance was, maybe it was there, but it was a lot lessened. He didn't assume he was right. Maybe he assumed he was right, but he didn't go into things just with a looking down on the humans, looking down on all that stuff.
He was really interested in the humans. I mean, he wanted to make sure he was able to watch I Love Lucy. And,
yeah.
Yeah, he claimed that he was doing that for research.
Hang out with that Cusack girl.
I'm sure he was watching that TV for research, but like, that was kind of a he was
having fun watching TV.
He's into human chicks.
Yeah.
He's one of those Vulcans that's into human chicks.
He's into Anne Cusack.
Yeah.
She's a Cusack.
Yeah,
She's a sister.
I looked it up. I didn't realize that.
Sister of Joan and John Cusack.
Yeah, she's like the older sister.
She was on Better Call Saul.
Yeah. That's right.
She was on The Boys, I believe. She played a character.
A League of Their Own.
On The Boys.
Yeah.
Tamir looked really fucking like she looked like it looked almost like a horror movie.
Yes,
almost when she was watching them in the car,
watching them snog in the car.
Yeah, right. And you see her in this dress, like all
dun, dun.
waving in the wind. Yeah, right.
Yeah, it's like Alfred Hitchcock.
Yeah, it was kind of fucked up.
The production design in this episode was particularly excellent.
Yeah.
I thought they really made this look like a blue collar 1950s
It was like a Lassie
town.
episode.
Yeah,
They walked right into a Lassie.
That's a good analogy
like
because
the trouble at the mine and shit.
they set this up as being a town in Pennsylvania, mining town, and in large part it's pulled off by the internal and external sets and decoration and how they costume people and stuff. The vibe of the people, definitely you get that sort of Pennsylvania vibe, or Pennsylvania.
No Pennsylvania accent.
Penisvania.
But
It's not penisal. That's not a word.
Penisal. Anyway, it's like a la 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 la.
That really tickled you.
La 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 la. I did. It tickled. I got tickled by the penisal. But what gives this away? What it doesn't take away from the show. But if you look at the background, if you look at the trees, you're like, oh, this is Northern California.
Oh, yeah.
This is or somewhere in California. This is a California.
Right.
Those are California trees. The buildings look like Pennsylvania. The roads look like Pennsylvania.
Right.
The people are dressed all, Pennsylvania style.
The landscape's a little too gentle.
Yeah, the trees always give it away.
It's the trees that'll get you.
That's what keeps people fresh and happy is those nice trees. So you're right, Jesse. Like, Pennsylvania's probably got some rougher, more blue collar trees.
Oh yeah.
They got great trees out in Pennsylvania, but they're different trees.
Yeah, they're different
They're
trees.
very different trees.
I just realized I sounded kind of like an asshole because I was berating Tamir for not having a drink with a dude. If you don't want to have a drink with some person, you shouldn't be forced to have a drink. That should be your call at all times. But if your friends are going to starve,
Not in the 50s.
if your friends are going to starve as a result, maybe they could have found a different way of doing it, but it seems illogical not to just sit for 5 minutes and then be completely silent and then just walk away.
There's two paths here because on the one hand, I think it's easy to argue, and it's an easily supported argument that Mestral was out of line, assuming and talking for Tamir. right? Because he just immediately said,
That
we'll
is
take
true.
that deal.
Right, that is true. He did talk for her.
That's
She's in
totally not-
command, actually.
And she's technically in command. So that's not cool
That's
for
not cool.
a variety of reasons.
That's not cool. You're right.
I do think that it is, it's a trickier argument because you're absolutely right that she has every right to consent to any activity as a person as well as the actual person in command of the mission at that stage because the captain died. However, as you noted, Dan, there's a logical thing here, right? It's the agreement is pretty simple, and I don't think it's a writing problem necessarily. It's more
It's not. I don't think it's a writing problem
I'm reading
either.
it as demonstrating the pride, and this is something they do repeatedly, particularly in Enterprise. They hammer onto the pride that Vulcans have and how that's one of their greatest weaknesses because so much of we hear so much in Star Trek about Klingons and honor, but it's the Vulcans who freak out more, like Sarek getting pissed off if his son isn't accepted to the Science Academy, or or doesn't go to the Science Academy and it wounds his pride, right? And that's a problem that Vulcans have. And maybe that's another way to think of Mestral is he didn't have so much Vulcan pride. I don't know. I'm still trying to psychoanalyze this Mestral fella to see like what the little things that are different about him than your standard bulky.
Well, yeah, they do.
I hope that isn't a racist term, by the way.
Vulky.
I just said that. It just kind of came out. Vulky. It sounds bad to me.
Pointy might be better.
Pointy ears.
I'm sorry, it might be worse. But better.
Pointy.
The pointies.
What if you call somebody a pointy
skin.
Vulky?
A pointy Vulcan.
Pointy.
That's
yeah,
just
yeah.
clever.
Yeah, I don't know. We're white people, but we understand that there's a high probability that most of the things we're saying are racist and problematic.
Don't listen to us.
We apologize.
They do.
There are much better podcasts out there.
They do a good job of making Mestral seem like the more logical Vulcan in a lot of aspects. Now you're right, like him like volunteering. I mean, okay, this episode was basically the emotional Vulcan episode. Everyone had emotions
Yes.
going. All the Vulcans did. But by Mestral not denying his emotions, he seemed more logical in the end. Now maybe that's just like the writers and the actor doing a good job of being relatable to humans. And me being a human species
human.
I'm a
human?
human. I'm a human. So
Human.
I see a Vulcan being all humanistic, and so I'm like, yeah, see, that's the way they should be, is like us. So, but at the same time,
Because of racism.
Yes, it's because of my inherent racism.
Prejudice.
It's true. Yeah. Speciesism. Anyways,
Pennsylvania is
penis vein, not penisal.
Pennsylvania.
Okay, and now you're just fucking around.
I'm just having fun.
You're just having fun.
I'm just joshing.
So he's fascinated by their humanity and their emotion, but somehow that makes him more logical because it makes him more willing to like listen to him. Because to Paul from the very start, it's like, I'm surprised these people haven't been annihilated. Tamir.
Freak out.
Tamir was like, I'm surprised these people haven't annihilated themselves yet. Like right after they landed, right after they
Yes.
saw some
Oh,
miners come out.
immediately.
Immediately she judged the entire species of a fucking planet
Yeah.
based upon some miners she saw walk by.
Which is typical Vulcan.
And
typical Vulky.
Right. And
attitude.
and Mistral is like, you just don't pay, you just choose not to pay attention. He was totally right. By being more open to that sort of like the emotions and shit, he ended up being sort of the more logical one in the end. But yeah, typical pointy Vulky.
It's funny how a lot,
Like we're just taking it
a
and
lot
running
of
with it.
a lot of stuff that deals with like looking back at the 50s, like looks at the fact that there was like this like impending like nuclear doom, and like I wonder, like, I mean, that was certainly true, but
Yeah.
like, I mean, I think people in the 50s were actually just dealing with it. Like we look back on it, and people are trying to paint a picture in a certain way that, you know, based on like, you know, making a comment on the Cold War and stuff, but I think people were just dealing with it. It wasn't like, so I think, you know, some people were worried about it, but
I have a theory about that.
yeah.
Go ahead, Dan.
Oh, I was just started. That just made me think of the hearing about the Cuban Missile Crisis and how that was like fucked up.
Because then that, like, it all sort of that was like in the early 60s, like after the 50s, everybody was freaked out about the nukes, and then
Right.
like so like then you had the Cuban Missile Crisis,
Right.
and then everything sort of like tended to diffuse until you have like another, you know, couple of Republican presidents, and they start like playing up the whole nuclear scare shit after, you know.
Like when we were kids.
Yeah,
in
like
the
when we were
1980s.
kids, like it came back
with the
in
air
the
horn,
80s.
the air horns that they would test them once a year. The air raid horn. They finally took those down a few years back.
Yeah.
I remember there was Is what you're talking about, like with Russians? Because the 80s was all about
the
like
Soviets.
It was the
Soviets.
total-
Oh yeah,
the
the
total-
Soviets. Yeah,
totally the
Soviets.
Soviets.
Sorry, so it was just made me think of a movie in the 80s called Ruskies or Ruskies or whatever. I don't know.
Yeah,
It was this
yeah.
movie that totally disappeared. It was on in the 80s for a second,
like
and it totally disappeared. It was totally based around some Cold War Soviet shit.
Yeah.
2010 with the joint crew that's Russian and American, and then they're on this long multi-year journey to get
that's
out there.
right, yeah.
And halfway through the journey, there's a war doesn't erupt, but diplomatic tensions break down, and so the crew has to, like, part of the plot of the movie is the crew has to go to their like sides of the ship and not interact, and of course that's not going to happen. But here's my theory on why we see these types of stories that you describe. Particularly in this era, 90s and 2000s era, is because I think a lot of those people who were writing those shows were kids when those fears were going on. And I think that the way they absorbed those fears may have been different than the way it would have affected adults at that time. Yeah. I think if you're a 5-year-old kid in the late 50s, and you see parents and news freaking out about Sputnik and things like that, that probably implants something to you. This is pure pop psychology, theoretical nonsense. But that was a phase because we saw stories about the Soviet Union and the Cold War in the 80s, of course.
Yeah, of course, the 80s also. I mean,
but it was a different vibe.
Well, so
it wasn't scared of them. It was
a different.
It was like
Soviet,
they're bad, but we're gonna beat them. These kids are gonna beat them in Red Dawn.
Well, here's the thing. So yeah, most of what I was gonna also say is that there's a lot of influence of that sort of Cold War stuff in all action movies and stuff like that. The
James
bad guy,
Bond.
and all the bad guys always being
The Hunt
from
for Red
around.
October.
But what was the difference about
where
Rusky?
Sam Neill wants to go raise rabbits in Montana.
What was different about Ruskies is it was these kids. I can't even barely remember it, but it was something about these three kids, these young teenage
Is that
kids.
like a ripoff of Red Dawn?
Some Russians
No.
like wash up on the beach or something.
It was one Russian. They find this Russian dude, and he's all
Was he
fucked
looking
up.
for nuclear vessels?
No.
like in Florida or something.
I'm trying to explain what it is, and you're.
I'm eager for the explanation.
And I was saying it was different because what Jesse was saying, it was like they found this Russian dude and they became friends with him, and they found out.
Yeah,
and
he was a
they-
nice fella.
and he was a nice fella, and they were scared of him at first, but then they became friends. And the Russian
nice.
guy,
Hey.
no, that's cat. Well, I'm not. We all know what that is. Look,
Kazakhstan.
Kazakhstan.
I knew a kid from Uzbekistan once. But
I knew a kid from Finland.
I knew a girl
His
from
name was Ule, and he had
Nantucket.
transparent hair.
I'm just trying to finish this thought, which is just to say they became friends in the end, and so that was why the movie was different. It was interesting in that, like, it was like, why is there a whole movie about kids making friends with this random Russian dude when you think about it? Why is there this movie? But it's because of that very specific
It was super
time.
late.
Was it a
super
Canadian movie?
Super late Cold War, where like the Russians should be our friends. Like the kids can get together and be friends. Like there's no reason not to be friends.
But the action movie where we killed him stood the test of time. But this
Yeah.
movie was just kind of like
Interesting.
was not evergreen.
That is interesting.
Yeah. Anyway.
I wonder what that says about us.
Yeah, I don't know.
If that's the one we don't remember.
But parents, adults in the 50s would have already had to deal with, say, the Depression and World War II. So, like, this was like just more of the same. But it wasn't. So they were equipped to deal with it. They were equipped to deal with it, as opposed to children. If you're growing up during this time,
Yeah. There's something I was thinking about, but that vibe, it's I don't know. I know everyone loves this episode. I love this episode. I think one reason why I like it is I have difficulty sort of pinning down exactly what it is. I think it's more of a sum of all the parts that make it, for me, a really enjoyable.
This is the second
episode.
time we've done a podcast about this episode.
No, it isn't. Dan insists that we've done this on the podcast before.
I swear I have a vivid memory.
He insisted so vociferously that I actually went back through the entire RSS feed.
You did?
Just to double check. I was like, Enterprise. I was like,
That's funny you should say that because it does seem familiar. Doesn't it?
Yeah, it does seem really familiar for some reason.
But we didn't talk about it. We would remember talking
I'm
about
pretty
these
sure
topics.
we did. Yeah, no, we totally did not.
Maybe
do
we
that.
all just watched it for fun.
Yeah, maybe.
No,
I've never
enjoyment.
I've never seen it before.
Instead of for this professional obligation of the podcast.
Yeah.
Yeah, because we're kind of required. Every week we got to do a podcast because of the money we get from Big Star Trek.
Big Star Trek.
Big Star Trek.
Big Star
They're
Trek.
just funneling their.
We've been
funneling.
corrupted by that big Star Trek money.
Yeah. The only thing is we were excited about the deal to begin with. Big Star Trek calls up.
Hello, I'm Big Star Trek.
And
We want you on our team.
It's Roddenberry.
And they're like, we need you to do a podcast.
We need you to
We needed to be vulgar. We needed to be needlessly vulgar, insightful, and a little bit goofy.
Fuck.
You could see Tamir's nipples when she was changing.
Okay, we'll get to the let's get to the nipples in a second. But what I was going to say is the only problem with the big Star Trek deal is until recently we didn't realize that they're just paying us in latinum.
Oh yeah.
And I thought latinum. I know what latinum is in Star Trek, but I thought, oh, maybe that's some cool new cryptocurrency. You know, because there's so many cryptocurrencies. But I looked it up. No, they're just selling us gold pressed latinum.
It might as well be like fucking Disney dollars.
Yeah, but they Johnny Star Trek on the phone. He said just give it a few hundred years and it'll be worth something.
Well, we should cryogenically freeze ourselves and have get discovered by Data, who's really into us, and for some reason.
Yeah. So
get a couple of them low mileage pit wolves.
Yeah.
So I love that. I still can't get over that. A couple episodes back, Neutral Zone. Load up the podcast. That's a good one on the Neutral Zone. So
Callbacks.
Getting to your point, Dan, about the nipples. 'Cause
My point.
We do need to get back to the nipple situation.
Oh man.
This episode, I think one reason, among others, that I do really enjoy it is that so often, and we've experienced this here on the podcast, you go back and you watch some of these classic episodes and they remain classics and you enjoy them, and sometimes you enjoy them more than you did or less. But it is unfortunately, although unsurprisingly, very common to see problematic things that are retroactively problematic. We're not going to be total assholes. That just happens when you look at art further back in time. The culture changes and things change. Although with the case of Star Trek, there are times where they do stuff where it's like, no, you guys totally knew at the time that this was not cool. And I think this is the only black mark on this episode is, and it's a conflicting black mark, to be honest, is the T'Pol nipple situation.
I just keep wondering, like everybody else, do you think Jolene Blaylock was really naked there?
Absolutely. And I think that's part of the problem is because we,
Do you think she was really naked there? That's how I sounded when I asked that.
Yeah. In fact, the second time you said it sounded no different than the first time you said it.
It's completely absurd for her to be able to put a dress on backwards.
Yeah, that was
she's
just
a fucking Vulcan.
So we saw her back. That was just so we could see her fucking back.
So she can go behind and we can see her silhouette, and that's
right.
That's what she's there for. She's there to take away everybody's fun, and then she's there to be like this like hyper-sexualized Star Trek.
We could have done without that scene, and they could have put in something better in.
Or it could have been the exact same scene without the nipples.
Yeah, that's true.
Right? Because that's, again, part of what makes it egregious. Because take that out, take the nipples out, or maybe, because for example, when she goes to turn her dress around,
we want people to know she's naked.
When she turns the dress around, the silhouette you see there is much more modest, right? Now, partly it's because of the action she's doing and all that, but my point is you could have had a more modest silhouette and still done what they were attempting to do, which was, it was a sitcom joke. They're in the era of sitcoms, and there are a few sitcom style jokes that they add in here.
I mean, they're taking like somebody's laundry off like a clothesline.
Yeah.
That's totally some old school like comedy.
And in fact, it harkens back to like City on the Edge of Forever, where Kirk and Spock, they also steal some clothes off of a laundry line. There's a couple City on the Edge of Forever. There's also the hat that Mestrel wears, looks like the hat that Spock wears in that episode. And then there's a shot of Strawn towards the end of the episode. He's working on some radio or something at the table, and it's very similar to Spock he was doing the similar thing, working with like contemporary components to try to make some Star Trek style thing.
Well, he's a warp field engineer, but he's a shit plumber.
Yeah, I know. Well, no,
he's got that thing.
The old lady he's helping wants to fuck him.
Now, I wanted to know a little bit more about Strom's. I wish we could have gotten to hear more Strom stories, but I understand.
I wanted to confirm that he had sex with her because I'm pretty sure he did.
Yeah, I understand there wasn't really time for Strawn's story, but that whole Mrs. Garrett situation. Yeah.
And he's helping her at the end where he doesn't even have to, but he's like, I promised to help her fix this vacuum, this suction device.
Right.
Which to me is like, yeah, he fucked her. Like that's where they're not. I think the writers would probably argue, no, we're merely saying, see, even he has changed his attitude a little bit, that he's going out of his way to help somebody that he doesn't need to. That's what the writers would argue. I would argue what the writers have done, intentionally or otherwise, is provide us proof positive evidence that Strawn fucked what was her name?
Mrs. Garrett.
Mrs. Garrett.
Oh, hey, Mrs. Garrett.
Yeah.
Oh, Tootie's on the show.
You know, Vulcan guys, they know what Vulcan ladies are like, and they want to see what humans are like.
Yeah, they're explorers, right?
Yeah, they're totally. This is the first fucking contact.
So with the Paul's nipple thing, that is it is unfortunate because we know that they did that way too much with T'Pol. We know that Jolene Blaylock suffered as a result of just this. This was the peak of Rick Berman style Star Trek, where in the case of Enterprise, and we've discussed this before, and I think in episode 5 of the podcast when we talk about Broken Bow, how I think they thought by 2002 that you could still overly sexualize women so long as you also showed Captain Archer's dick and balls through his underwear and Trip Tucker. Like they were like, oh, if we show some dudes dick and balls, that's okay. And we already had a discussion about, you know, what the merits of that logic are. But part of what I think makes it even more a little frustrating for me with the T'Pol nipple thing is I'm watching it. I play a heterosexual man on TV and on podcasts, and so I reacted as they.
But he's not.
I reacted exactly as the producers wanted me to react, and it annoyed me because I saw that and I was like, you know, whatever voice Dan was doing earlier. It was like,
you can't help it.
look at that body.
Yeah, right.
And
It's a body. Yeah.
but it's I want to be clear. I don't have any problem with sexuality in TV or Star Trek.
We're not prudes.
I think that's no.
It's
love
okay
it.
if you are a prude, but we're not.
Sexuality of all types. It is good when it's spread around and it's not confined to cisgender heterosexuality, but I don't have a problem with that if it's in the right context and if it's appropriate for the setting in the story.
If it's
and in
not
this
like
case,
obvious,
it's like, oh, she's taking off her space lady uniform, and I guess the bras are built in, or I don't know exactly what the Vulcan deal is with that. Maybe they're not. Whatever. You can make all sorts of justifications.
They don't need bras
as to why she was. Yeah, you can make justifications as to why this was totally appropriate. It's like, yeah, but I mean, it's just like the lighting of it. Why did we have to see the silhouette at all? Why couldn't we just see her go back, change it? We still get the gag out of it. She's still an attractive person, even wearing that silly burlap dress.
It wasn't like it was particularly sunny outside.
That's a good point. Well, it was like you pointed out how it was an old throwback to an old sitcom kind of joke, except they sexualized it. And now I don't know if that joke was sexual at the time, but it doesn't seem sexual. Like changing behind the thing, like back in that old style.
On I Love Lucy, the joke would have been you would have seen her walk behind and then walk back out, and then
some clothes might have gone flying around.
Exactly.
Right.
That would be hilarious if
the joke would be like,
that would have been awesome. Yeah, just over the top, baby.
Yeah, see, we're helping the writers out.
Yeah, helping the whiters out.
You're not wrong in this case.
Oh, man.
You're white.
You're not wrong in this case as far as I know. It was written by Chris Black. Well,
I mean, really, how is it logical to make these shitty observations about a dominating species within days of landing on its planet?
It's
Just
not.
like that's the whole fucking thing is they were doing the whole time, and the whole time Astral is like, guys, get your head out of your asses, basically.
But that's what Enterprise is. If for those who maybe haven't watched a lot of Enterprise or watched any at all, and have heard criticisms or whatever, it's not that there aren't valid criticisms of Enterprise. We throw a lot of them out there as well, and there's behind the scenes stuff that caused issues. It was canceled. All these things, but it's worth watching for a huge number of reasons. But one of them is that there's this undercurrent of learning about Vulcan culture a lot more than we had previously, and specifically making more overt the critique of how Vulcans present themselves versus how they actually are, right? And I really enjoyed that because it was almost the reverse in some ways, where it was a very similar process to what was done on Enterprise and Voyager and to a certain extent Deep Space Nine, where they started showing us Klingons, for example, who were not bloodthirsty warrior types, that they were scientists or doctors or nerds, or whatever, like Alexander, for example. So
Total nerd.
yeah. So we
What a dweeb.
we get to learn a lot more about Vulcans, and this just continues that tradition in that we have a Vulcan-centric episode. We see a diversity of opinions and personalities in the Vulcans, which is in and of itself interesting. But beyond that, we see they make it very clear, as you're noting, Dan, that this is a ridiculous position. It's certainly not logical. It's a prejudiced, arrogant position to have.
And I think what you're saying about pride, that's definitely it more than anything else, because she wasn't. Tamir wasn't that disgusted about the idea of having a drink with a human, like in the sense that she wasn't like so grossed out, like she had boogers all over her body or something that she just couldn't do it, and she's a Vulcan. She can she knows how to just be cold and keep her mouth, Vulcans can be cold and keep their mouths shut and just kind of put up with a situation for a few minutes and then leave. It was like what you said about pride though, where it's like, that was what she was afraid of. She was worried that someone else was going to see her associate with this guy. Now, maybe that's taking it a little too far, but that's that's a slippery slope to that direction of why do you really not want to do these things? Why do you not want to eat meat? Why do you not want to, you're afraid that another Vulcan's going to catch you doing that, and then they're going to call you names. So it seems like Vulcans are really care about what other people think a lot or something.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially at least what other Vulcans think.
Yeah.
They might care less about what humans or Andorians think of them, but
I don't think they care about Andorians.
Yeah, they probably, maybe, I mean, they have a hang-up with Andorians. Vulcans' whole deal is they seem to have hang-ups with everybody. They have hang-ups with the Romulans. They have hang-ups with the Andorians. They have hang-ups with the humans for even into TNG and beyond. There are still these, maybe things are better, but they're still.
It seems like they've been better with humans than with some other people.
And some of that is, and this is discussed in later Star Trek episodes, or I should say Star Trek episodes that take place later in the timeline.
Discussed in.
Pennsylvania. Pennsylvania.
Discussed in.
Fuck.
But the idea that Vulcans were Vulcans, as well as a lot of the other species in the quadrant, or in the region, were really caught off guard in some ways by the rapid advance of humans. Now, this, of course,
because of that Velcro they gave them.
Yeah. So, and also that whole situation in Voyager with Sarah Silverman and Ed Begley Jr.
Mm-hmm. Can't forget that one.
But so
that was probably more of a fact. But although she did say that Velcro would change the world.
Yeah, and it did. That guy's face looked so happy when he brought her the Velcro.
I thought that was some guy from Switzerland or something.
What the guy? What you think?
Velcro?
Well, actually, so here's the thing: the Velcro was invented by a guy named George de Mestral. So they got the name Mestral from George de Mestral, who actually invented Velcro. So that's a fun little.
He opened it 3 times. On the 3rd time, he went rang. He did it.
He's like, fuck yeah,
fuck
yeah! I can imagine all sorts of horrible shit to do with this.
See, now we were talking about
I'm gonna put it on my shoe.
We're talking about rule of threes. That was him doing it 3 times. Now, one might say, an astute observer might say, well, Tamir only opened it twice. That was to set up the rule of 3. That was a twofer to set up the rule of 3. She was like, "What's going to happen? No, I'm not going to give it to you. I'm going to tease you. I'm going to leave you wanting more." And then he does the 3.
He was like, "Oh, it does it 3 times."
What do you call that?
And that's what satisfies.
What do you call that in music when you have an unresolved
tension release? Isn't that basically all they call it?
But it's related to like an unresolved something, or an unresolved measure or something.
There's a deceptive cadence.
Oh yeah,
where you don't resolve it.
You know who has a deceptive cadence? George W. Bush.
He does.
There's
not to get political, folks.
The Picardy third, which is not what he's talking about, but that's another.
There's the Picardy maneuver,
ending on a major when the whole piece
Picardy
is
maneuver.
It's minor and it ends in major. That's how it goes.
I remember
there's a major and it ends in minor.
Talking music, they're not getting my Picardy.
I don't know if it was a teacher or if it was a book where somewhere I read that the Picardy third is mostly just kind of, or maybe it was Mrs. McBride. Sorry, this is getting really inside. That the Picardy third is mostly just sort of arbitrary. It's
because there is some box stuff where it's the whole thing's in minor and it just ends in a
it's like major, why?
So, yeah.
It's a good way to end
music. It's a good way to end something major.
It's got music theory with Dan and Jesse. I'll be elsewhere at the time, but
Well, we're gonna do that for real.
I will eagerly
Yeah, for
listen.
real. Well,
I was saying Picardy maneuver. The audience already heard this because the audience was listening.
Is that where you drive your car and stop the car in front of you by running into the back corner of
exactly? That's right.
Is that true?
No, the Picard maneuver.
Oh.
Which is where he.
Oh, I'm thinking a pit maneuver.
He travels at warp and appears in two places at once and tricks the Ferengi.
Oh, Picard. Oh, Picardy. Picard.
maneuver.
Penis vein. Pennsylvania.
That's the Picardy multiples.
Well, so what she was doing there, this is a long way for a minor joke, but yes, because I think this is an important observation.
It went from minor to major.
That she did it twice,
Jesse.
and that primes you for the rule of three, but it's unresolved, so there's a tension, and then you need him to do it 3 times, and that's why he does that 3rd time. So fucking fuck yeah, and
it releases everyone,
and it just releases all over the place,
and everyone releases.
Everyone releases. That's right.
You got a mess on your hands.
Oh no.
But all right, so
she found her Velcro in her future spaceship. Is that she just had a Velcro thing? So Vulcans have Velcro independent of Earthlings.
Sure, why not? Well, not independent.
They
gave it to. They gave it to
that's right.
Earthlings.
Duh. Causation.
They gave it to them.
Oh, duh. Yeah. Back in time rules.
Yeah.
Time rules.
Yeah.
Tenet.
1955.
Yeah. Cause the rules of causation, things like that. Paradoxes.
Temporal causality loops.
If they had gone back to California, they could have run into Marty McFly, perhaps.
Yeah, or Barty McSly. That's stupid.
Or Biff.
I know, but we're gonna leave that one in.
Or Biff.
That one does not get edited out.
Oh, man.
About an hour and a half of the episodes get edited out, and they're just Dan saying things like that. But that's a good one.
Half of the episode gets edited out. Edited out. Half the episode gets edited out. Edited out. Half the episode gets edited out.
not this part. And of course, we're gonna inevitably get. So every week we get
half the episode gets edited out.
We get so many lovely comments from people thanking us for the show and saying how great the show is on Twitter and Facebook and even on the email at feedback.
They really do, actually.
But we also always get those like 2 emails where it's like, the show would really, if you cut out some of that stuff, some of the non-Star Trek stuff, you just slice that out, it would be, really tighten up the show. Sorry, we appreciate the critique. The show is not for everyone. The show is what it is. It's carefully crafted. It takes about 4 or 5 days, full work days to plan.
It's for
everything.
everyone and for no one.
Just so all the episodes get edited out.
Exactly.
Half of the episode gets edited out.
Half the episode gets edited out.
Okay.
Edited out.
Last week episode got edited out.
There's a high probability we're gonna have
you got it.
We're gonna have a keyboard connected up to the board next week. So one of these guys can just jam out. Jesse can jam out on the keyboard. A while back, I sort of started down the road of a point I wanted to make, which was a point I wanted to make. This week's
episode got a point I wanted to make.
So, talking about how this is taking place in Pennsylvania, it's very U.S. centric. It's human centric, which Star Trek always is, and we know that you could critique that. Lots of Star Trek has moved beyond that. Deep Space Nine was really good at that. Discovery has been really good at that, of being a little bit broader than the human centric and sort of interrogating that focus on humans that is endemic to Star Trek. That is less of an issue because it's the argument, of course, is this is a show by humans for humans. It's meant to tell folk tales basically that have lessons embedded in them for humans to take, right?
I can't stop.
You took it right from me.
But
eye contact first.
But the U.S. centric thing is a big problem and you could again same arguments for why it was U.S. centric, particularly older Star Trek, because it was a U.S. television program that was canceled after 3 seasons. They didn't expect it, become a phenomenon necessarily.
Phenomenon.
But I don't begrudge them so much. I know this is the era, and so they wanted to go back to a 1950s blue collar U.S. town. But when Jack, and we can talk about Jack in a second, but Jack, the charming young man,
he said all the right things.
He did.
Said library twice.
When when he's talking to T'Pol, and that's that really great scene where T'Pol opens up her. That's where Jack cracks through T'Pol's arrogance and pride in a sense that my read of the episode is she was resisting the humans up until that conversation with Jack, where not only is he kind of understanding what meditation is and not acting weird or whatever, he then goes on to say, well, the Buddhists in here and the people in Hindus in India, he talks about he's not only demonstrating his own complexity, but that there is complexity to the planet. Saying in these other places, by the way, meditation is actually super common, right?
And Tamir was like, that seemed to impress her a lot.
Yeah, she probably wasn't even.
That's what opened her.
That,
she thought everyone was just minors all over the world.
Yeah, exactly. So
not that there's anything wrong with minors.
So what that made me think of was how now that we're finally in an era where Star Trek is moving away somewhat, at least from this U.S. centric perspective. Wouldn't it be great on, I don't know, Strange New Worlds or maybe Lower Decks if they did a similar kind of episode, but instead of going back in time to a U.S. Air Force base or a U.S. mining colony or whatever, if they went to like India or Africa or something and told a story there, I think that would be so fascinating because you could recycle some of the story concepts and structure, which Star Trek is not shy about doing, but put it in a new place that would contextualize it in a very different way, so you wouldn't feel like you're like, oh, another one of these episodes.
I think that's a good idea, and I think us as humans are ready for it. I think we're ready for an episode like that.
Let's go.
I think most people are. Yeah.
We'll call up Johnny Star Trek and our contact over
Johnny
at Star
Roddenberry.
Trek, and Rod Roddenberry's assistant, Johnny Star Trek. They made him legally change his name. It's a whole long
Rod Roddenberry.
Rod Roddenberry is the real guy. That's Gene Roddenberry's son. He's like the main.
I thought he was Eugene Roddenberry.
When Jack invited Tamir to see the Sputnik, do you think he was just being like, "Hey, this is a neat thing to do," or do you think he kind of like was into Tamir?
Oh no, he was into her. Yeah, but he was into her in the right way.
He was, because she kind of shut that down immediately. She was like, "I've seen it," and he's like, "Oh, cool." And then that kind of like after that, you didn't get that vibe anymore. So he was like, "Okay, that's cool."
She's seen it.
So
he was a good kid. Yeah. He was a good kid and a good example. I mean, he's the best human in this episode.
Yeah. Oh, by far. And not by far. I mean, Maggie's pretty cool.
No, Maggie's cool, but what he represents is the potential for humans, and I think that's another aspect of it that helps T'Pol wake up a little bit and start to shift her views somewhat and develop some level of compassion for these people. It's because she met Maggie. She was nice to Maggie. She thought perfectly kindly of Maggie, but it wasn't Maggie that got her to say, oh, okay, maybe humans aren't all pieces of shit. Mm-hmm. It was this guy, Jack.
Because he was saying how he just goes to the library for fun, and I'm sure that made an impression on a Vulcan that, she what is she seeing? She's seen like some miners bumming around. She's seen some guys in a bar drinking and playing pool. She's seen some guys like listening to baseball, and she thought there was some kind of combat.
She just assumed it was a fight.
Yeah.
Well, I thought Vulcans didn't like to explore. I thought they were like, why should we explore that asteroid? We already know it's an asteroid.
I think what the deal with Vulcans is not that they don't like to explore, because they obviously have been sending out probes and stuff. That's why they had.
That's what they've been exploring the whole time.
It's that their exploration is maybe less deep, and it's interested in very specific things. Like you said, they want to know, is the rock there? What are the minerals on that rock?
Do you smell what it's cooking?
See, when humans explore and they're like, we're gonna find out what's out there, and we're gonna all the possibilities, and like Vulcans aren't about all the possibilities. They're just about like.
And when they want to learn about
what can
people,
we learn about?
Like what they want to learn about humans is like, are these people a threat?
Yeah.
That's more what they're interested in. They're kind of just, it's like a zoo thing, like, all right, let's just see what the deal is with these people. So we just add it to the database.
Like a zoo. It's like, well, we already know a bunch of stuff already. So like,
it's almost like the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, where the entry on humans is mostly harmless. It's just like, don't worry. That's just, we've done our bit. We've added it to the database. Now other Vulcans and people can look it up and be like, all right, that's the deal with this place.
They got a Sputnik.
When Tamir...
It wasn't even those guys that had the Sputnik. That was the Russians.
Yeah.
It was
They were like, I can't believe they were able to put an artificial satellite in orbit. It's like, no, they didn't.
These
These people did not do that.
Yeah, look at some of the other planet. That's totally. Yeah, I mean, I know that
US-centric.
in the world of space and sci-fi, each planet is inhabited by one particular kind of species.
To your planet, welcome. That's a line from Star Trek 3, The Search for Spock. Said by a bar patron alien to McCoy.
Do you think it was logical for Tamir to flash all her loot to everyone on the street after she sold her Velcro?
You mean by opening her purse and being all like fanning it out?
Yeah, fanning out all the 50s.
And then slowly putting it back in, looking back and forth, and then shuffling along her way?
She risked that for us,
do you think
the audience. She did that for us.
Now, did it say on the screen or not? I don't think it did. I was wondering whether we think she went to Pittsburgh or to Philly. I figure it's got to be one of the two, right?
I read that it was Pittsburgh.
Pittsburgh would make sense geographically.
You're supposed to assume that it's like Western.
I just wasn't sure if I mean Pittsburgh. Like, no offense, but Pittsburgh is a wonderful town. It's not the town I think of when I'm like, I've got an invention that I'm going to sell for lots of money. I'm going to go to Pittsburgh. I could be wrong. Maybe in the 50s that would be where you go. It could be there.
I think it wasn't even that great of a city in the 50s because like Andy Warhol was from Pittsburgh and he was all like, I got to get out of Pittsburgh.
But Philly, to me in my brain, like Philly, I'm like, oh yeah, you can sell some inventions.
Totally,
in Philly.
yeah.
You can totally just hang out on the street and sell some inventions.
I have a list of some times that Vulcans were emotional in this episode. I know it's a tired subject in general because we've established that Vulcans are, like their non-emotional thing is not a total ruse, but it is based a lot on bullshit.
I don't want to disrupt your list, but that one, like you made me think of like when Mestrel's all like when Maggie says like, oh, I try to keep my emotions in check, but it's hard, and Mestrel's all like, I know.
Yeah, that was cool. That was a good
sweet.
exchange. Yeah, and we don't have to do the list this second, but I was just saying.
I kind of want to do it now.
Okay, so this episode it's particularly it usually in Star Trek, it gets tired talking about why Vulcans are like emotional, actually are emotional in certain ways. But this episode, it just seemed to happen all over this place. So first of all, we haven't talked about T'Pol much this episode.
Yeah, the framing device.
So first of all, they're always finding ways to give her shit. Like, they're always like trying to push her beliefs and like give her shit about her practices. So
yeah, it's kind of an abusive work environment.
Yeah, so when she had some wine, they're like, oh, I thought Vulcans didn't drink wine. I thought they didn't drink wine. What are you drinking wine for, Vulcan?
Now,
you don't drink wine. Oh, you only want an inch. I want more.
The delivery by Connor Trenier may have been a little bit. He might have taken a different choice than what you've done today, but yeah, point taken. Point taken.
So
the text is still there.
But but what is the deal? She wants wine because it's a celebration. So T'Pol's 1-year anniversary celebration on being the ship. Do Vulcans celebrate? According to Vulcans, they apparently don't take vacations, but they celebrate. I think that's an inconsistency. I think that's an emotional Vulcan right there.
I also think it's a semantic point because they don't take vacations, but they always seem to be taking sabbaticals.
Yeah.
And they just say like, oh yeah, I'm,
they call it
meditating.
Yeah,
it's not a vacation. I'm just going to a spa and relaxing and thinking about shit.
Yeah.
I'm not on vacation.
T'Pol even herself was like, well, I went to this place and I went to that place and I went to that place, but it's not a vacation. Vulcan emotional lying is another aspect. Another time, why did she say when Archer poured the wine and told her to say when? You know what I mean? You only say that if you're joking around. You only go like, when someone's like, say when, and you go, when.
She wouldn't know that.
You're just joking around.
She wouldn't know that. She's T'Pol, the Vulcan.
She didn't pick up, she doesn't know the subtleties.
She doesn't. I'll accept that.
But he did that thing, which is typical, and I'm guilty of it too, which is somebody says when, and you're like a little a little extra. I'm not going to stop right away. Glurp, glurp, glurp.
Right.
Glurp, glurp, glurp.
Because if you want actually somebody to stop, you have to be like, whoa.
Yeah.
And then
you have to be
stop.
like, holy shit.
Yeah.
What the fuck, man?
Because I do that to Natalie, and she'll be like, oh, okay.
Whoa.
Emotional Vulcan episode number 3. T'Pol won't tell her age to Trip because women don't do that. And then
I didn't understand that.
And then Archer and Archer was like, "Oh, it's class."
See,
yeah, exactly.
For me, that was another example. That I took as a writing mistake.
Yep.
That I took as like, why the fuck would a Vulcan care about their age? And I know what they're saying is they're making a woman joke here.
Yeah.
But in addition to being in poor taste and and out of date, certainly in 2002. It also doesn't make sense in the context of why would a Vulcan woman care? It doesn't be cagey sense about it. I don't know. I mean, I could imagine reasons for a Vulcan to be cagey about their age, but it's not vanity, one presumes.
Right, yeah. It would only be if it actually applied to the mission.
Exactly. Like if there was some reason why, like they go to a planet where you're only allowed on the planet if you're under 50 years old.
Yeah, right.
Because it's one of those fun planets.
Oh, those doom planets.
I'm glad you mentioned that because I found that annoying.
Yeah.
It felt out of place.
Yeah.
Number 4 we already mentioned, which was it was like when
what was it? By the way, what was number 2?
Number 2 was, why did she say when Archer poured the wine and told her to say when?
And what was number 1?
To Paul's 1 year's anniversary.
Oh, yeah, got
Do
it.
Vulcans celebrate? They apparently don't take vacations.
All right, well done. So, so this proves that we take notes.
We take
vigorous notes.
Vigorous.
So we're on number 4.
4. So we already said this one was when Tamir was judging the miners, and she's saying it's hard to believe these people are capable of launching an artificial satellite. Man. We already went over that. She saw them for 2 seconds, and like you pointed out, no, they didn't. Some other people did. If you held off your judgment for a few seconds.
The Soviets.
How's it logical to make a snap judgment like that? Emotional Vulcan moment.
Patented.
Emotional. I need a flag to wave around.
But
Registered.
she hadn't had
trademarked.
anything to eat for like 5 days.
That's true.
That is
That's
a fair
like-
point. But they didn't.
even a Vulcan's gonna have trouble.
Get a
with
little
that.
grumpy.
But they didn't play it that way.
Yeah,
They
you're
could have-
right.
They could have
True.
played it that way.
That's the thing with
Absolutely.
stories is you can come up with all kinds of fan fiction on your own to explain away a
Yeah,
moment, but we can
yeah.
only go with what we're given.
Exactly.
And we can read between the lines where it's implied, but
Yeah.
if it's not...
And they're
you know.
boxed in a little because Vulcans are, by definition, supposed to not show their emotions. So how do you tell the actors, be like, all right, don't show emotions, but also show that you've been starving for a week and living in the woods, and you're still super
woods.
clean.
Lots of animals to eat, but you're not gonna
Because they were living in the woods for a while because they hadn't eaten in 5 days, but they had been there a while to go through all their rations, right? So they'd have been there at least, you got to say, close to a couple weeks, right? At least when you add up the time, and they weren't dirty.
What a bunch of bozos.
And when they must be... I agree with you. And why wouldn't you say if you snapped at someone because you were hungry, you'd probably say like, "Oh, I'm sorry. I was just in a bad way." But
I'm sorry, I was prejudiced to this entire species of people.
Yeah, but
I'm a little peckish.
I know.
Yeah, but Vulcans don't apologize or something because that's back to pride.
Yeah,
As soon as you get all that food, you get food to eat. You immediately be like, "Oh, well, I was a real asshole."
Yeah,
I was just really hungry.
Maybe that's just and maybe that's just the human side of me saying like that's what you should apologize or whatever. But maybe Vulcans are just like they're apologizing is illogical. I don't know. Anyways,
Yeah, it could be.
What's the next one? What is this? 6?
this is 5.
5.
Tamir says, and Jesse, you pointed this out when they were listening to the radio. And then there was and they're listening to that sporting event. She goes, some type of combat, no doubt. When they were listening to that, but it was a baseball game. How did she know it was a combat sport? Why did she assume that?
Is that emotional, though?
It's just yes, because it's oozing disdain everywhere.
All right.
Everywhere. It's oozing.
That's a borderline because you're
Yeah.
right, it's oozing disdain, but Vulcans are kind of always oozing
Yeah.
disdain. So sometimes it's a little hard to distinguish.
Yeah, that's a good point.
But fair point. All right, what's
Some of these are stronger than others for sure.
number 6?
We
Number
mentioned
6.
We mentioned this earlier too. Is she didn't want to risk having a drink with some dude to prevent them from starving? Was she scared? Of course she wasn't scared. Was she really that disgusted? Probably not. Seems like she was just posturing, like she was worried someone would find out that she was associating with a human.
Yeah, and in that scene, I kind of because it was difficult to interpret. The interpretation I sort of initially took and grabbed onto was that walking into that place, she was all about, okay, fine, we're in the town, but don't talk to anybody.
Yeah.
All we're trying to do is find a way to get
That's
some
a
food.
good point.
And that was her focus. And so that there's a whole like, oh, you're going to play a game with this guy for money, and then I'd have to talk to him. So that it was more like, no, I've now got to come up with a different plan. We eaten some pretzels, but like we got to shift to some other plan. That was my interpretation.
That's actually a really good point about like not wanting to talk to people and trying to hold up that plan. It works much better than her being like, really self-conscious and
because it doesn't make sense for Tamir if the Tamir is serving as a T'Pol analog, which I guess you they're having her played by Jolene Blaylock, so to a certain degree we're gonna place T'Pol personality traits onto her great foreskin mother,
great grandmother, second removed.
Pennsylvania.
Someone was telling me the other day how that works. Like second cousin twice.
Foreskin?
First cousin
yeah.
twice removed versus second cousin.
That one's good for you,
Yeah, we don't need to go into foreskin. Yeah.
It's got genealogy.
This
You
is
should look up the anthropological principle of the mother's brother.
Okay, I will. The mother's brother, an
I'm not going to
anthropological
explain it.
principle.
Not going to explain it here.
The mother's brother by the anthropological principle.
Which don't
Chapter one.
and when you Google this, be careful. Don't click on the links that talk
no.
about Mark Mothersbaugh.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Well,
I mean, you can click on them.
Mother's penis, Pennsylvania.
Pennsylvania.
Mark
Did you mean Mark
Mothersbaugh.
Mothersbaugh?
I thought you were going somewhere else with that comment. I thought you were
wasn't.
going somewhere dirty, but okay.
No. Right, well, like an incest
I did
porn
too,
thing.
yeah.
There's a lot of that out there. Kids,
Pretty
don't.
much all that.
Kids, just be careful on that whole on their pornography web, because these days you wouldn't believe it.
You wouldn't.
You see a little image and you're like, oh, that looks intriguing. Then you look at the caption and you're like, oh man.
We're talking about it, and I still don't believe it's true.
Of course, it's not.
I think
true.
we're lying.
They're
No,
not
those are
really,
all. They're
not really
Those are all
related.
fake.
Yeah, they are.
Which is an added layer of weirdness.
Yeah.
Sometimes they're pretty close in age, so it's not
Yeah.
like it's like
That's the most hilarious form of mother son or mother stepson.
Yeah.
that dude's mother's like 30.
So we're over halfway there. So we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
Number 7
So
on the countdown.
top 7 emotional Vulcan moments in no particular order.
And of varying degrees of quality.
Number 7. Yep. T'Pol feigns like she's offended when Trip disses on her story about them getting TV dinners. When he's talking about cryogenics, and he's like, "Now wait just a darn minute," and she's like, and then they're like, when they're all interested, like when they're all like, "No, T'Pol, sit down, we want to hear the story." She looks all self-satisfied, like, "Yeah. Yeah, you want to hear my story."
She has fun with these two gentlemen.
And if she isn't being emotional there, then maybe she's just hammered on her wine and feeling silly, but that still that's still emotion,
She's hammered.
So there's that. Number 6, emotional.
No, it's number 8.
Yeah, I decided to go in reverse order because it's top 7 now.
That doesn't
You're changing up the format.
that doesn't make any sense. You've counted up from 1 through 7.
Now you're counting down again.
You can't reverse it. This is not like a fucking sine wave. What kind of radical form of ranking are you doing? I mean, I'm honestly open to.
You're turning the whole world of ranking on its ear.
I'm open to sort of breaking down with a hegemony of rankings, but I mean, we at least have to explain what's going on here. If we're going back to 6, are you going to repeat the same 6?
No, because now we're in the last 7, so it's no longer the emotional. It's not listing them now. It's top 7.
But I thought it was top 10 total.
Well, it was top 13, but I didn't want to. But I didn't.
Okay.
Yeah, but I didn't want to say that there were 13 because I was afraid you guys would be like, "Oh my God, there's so many." But
instead, we're saying, "Oh my God, what the fuck are you talking about?"
Okay. Back to the original numbering system. Okay. Number
Honestly,
6.
now I'm somewhat. No, that's not the original
We
numbering
already did
system.
6.
That is not the original numbering system. Although, honestly, I'd be quite disappointed if we do go back. If the next words out of your mouth are number 8, those will be technically logical. It will make more sense. It'll be easier on the audience, who we've already stressed the fuck out enough.
I'm pretty sure they know how to count.
Well,
Yeah.
they definitely know how to count, but I mean, podcasts are supposed to some degree, be relaxing distractions from real fucking life.
Yeah,
And we're inserting all this bizarre, complex
chaos.
physical math into
Oh
it.
my God.
Planes and brains, you know what I'm talking about?
I'm also going
It's
to have
got
to start
0 downloads.
start doing.
That'll be the title of our NFT episode. We're thinking of doing an NFT episode, and that would be a good title for it.
So I'm gonna have to start doing math too because I labeled it 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12.
Jesus Christ.
So number 6, Tamir is convinced humans will destroy themselves like immediately, and she calls the TV idiotic. Idiotic is a hardcore emotional word, man. Like, how is it logical to make shitty
agree.
observations about that species? Like,
That's a good one, because it is that idiotic.
Yeah.
she's getting influenced by these humans.
Because people already call it the idiot box.
Yeah, it's already
I thought that was she was just being silly
just
there.
calling back that, and then he was
look at all of the information you can get about a culture by watching what the fuck they're watching on television.
Of course, like getting back to that joke about that Mestral makes about like, well, I got to go back to the ship now because I Love Lucy is on later and I don't want to miss it.
Waveform discriminator.
Meanwhile, we're watching this episode on streaming, and I'm thinking about my kids and future generations are going to be like, we don't understand what he means.
Yeah, right.
What do you mean it comes on at a certain time?
Yeah, right.
What it's on?
Oh man,
it's on now.
We set up the antenna to watch Saturday Night Live the other night, and my daughter was like, why are we watching old TV?
Damn right.
And she was totally thrown off by the commercials. Like she didn't understand. Like, why is it like 6 minutes of there's like a sketch and then like 6 minutes of commercials? Because she sees commercials on YouTube or whatever. But there's like little
there's one
ridiculous. Yeah, there's like one, and there's some there's micro commercials that are aggravating on YouTube, but at least they don't take up that much of your time. Where it's like a 1 second commercial. It's like, buy this.
Number 9.
Are you sure?
Yeah. Last one was number 6, so this one is number 9.
All right.
Mestral. Okay, speaking of I Love Lucy and the Waveform Discriminator, that's a perfect segue into this next one. Mestral lies to Tamir about getting a waveform discriminator when he instead went to a baseball game. Lying is illogical.
That's totally a Lucy move.
That's like one of the things that Vulcans are always like, lying is bullshit. You shouldn't lie. It's not logical.
The lying in Vulcan culture is sort of interesting because they go back and forth on it for a while, certainly in the original series. And they kind of set it up. Sometimes they set it up as Vulcans can't lie or cannot lie. If you don't like contractions for some reason, Dave.
Like
do not like contractions.
Do not.
Sometimes they say...
Does the doctor use contractions?
Yes. Yeah, because he's not physically debilitated like Data was.
Right. He was. He was held back by that, wasn't he?
Yeah, because of Lore. His brother Lore fucked everything up. But Lore was more human, and it freaked everyone out. So they made a more relaxed robot.
They made an Uncanny Valley.
But what were we talking about?
We were talking about instead of going to the baseball game, or more Vulcans lying.
Oh yeah. So the Vulcan lying thing sometimes is that they can't lie. Right. And so there are plot points in many in Star Trek episodes and movies which rely on the concept of other people thinking that Vulcans cannot physically lie, and that's what gets them to move the plot along. Other times they say it's not that Vulcans can't lie, but that it's a massive abrogation of their philosophy, right? Which is more reasonable, quite frankly, because it seems ridiculous that somebody would physically be unable to lie. If you associate it more with their culture requires, and there's significant punishment if they lie, then okay. Now, getting back to Enterprise, they actually flesh this out a little bit. They talk about it in the 4th season, where there are some events and some things that happen in Vulcan culture over the course of Enterprise, and there's particularly an episode in the 4th season where that's where this idea is introduced, that and they solidify it a little bit more. It's not that Vulcans can't lie, it's that it's a social faux pas to a very high extreme if they do, and that it's a new thing introduced to the culture. Because another thing we see on Enterprise with the Vulcans is that there are things that are different about their culture than what we're familiar with from TOS onward. For example, they don't do mind melds. The people who do mind melds are considered freak, mutant, disturbing, awful people, and it's almost an analogy to LGBTQ type situation with the people who can do mind
there was
melds.
a whole T'Pol episode where she got raped.
And that episode, it's an interesting episode, but it also mixes its messages a little bit. There's a few things that are confusing in there. But so the point being that at this stage, certainly because this is even further in the past, the prohibition against lying is probably much, much looser. It's probably more similar to our own the sort of the generic human prohibition against lying.
So even Vulcans are still working it out. They're still working out.
And Mestral makes that point.
Yeah, he does. He's like, we were fucked up years ago, just like all the shit you're upset about humans now.
Which is a typical, by the way. It's funny to watch this from the viewpoint of we're recording this in 2021. And there's a lot of issues surrounding white supremacy and all these sorts of things, which have been with us a long time, but there's a lot of attention being paid to those issues right now. And when you think about it, that idea, and it's not just white supremacy, but that's where the focus is right now. That idea that you deem your culture to be superior, even though your culture went through similar stages. Mm-hmm. And that's a twisted logic, because there is a logic to that. There's a logic saying like, yeah, we went through those stages, but we went through them. We're not there now. So we were shitty, they are shitty. So we're allowed to call them shitty because we've quote unquote advanced.
Yeah, but that's just a greater degree of the principle of the person who like learns some new factoid today and then makes fun of everyone because they didn't know it. Like, you didn't know that?
It's an undeserved superiority, because it assumes, first of all, it assumes a hierarchy of culture, which is a very problematic viewpoint for a lot of reasons, to say this culture is better than this culture for these concrete reasons. Subjectively, obviously, you can make all sorts of arguments and have lots of debates and fill lots of books about that. But to just declare it with such certainty as T'Pol does, and it's great that Mestral...
You mean Tamir?
Tamir, Jesus. And Mestral...
Tamir, Jesus. Tamir.
Jesus, Tamir.
Oh, my God.
Mestral pushes back on that, which is fantastic. I think it was really good to see that and to help. And then you see the process of Tamir learning, partly from Jack. And one reason why Jack is so good, I think, just a bonus point, is that I like that they present him as bookish, but he's not shy. Mm-hmm. He's not weak. He's not disrespected by the people in his community. Mm-hmm. Quite the opposite. In fact, they want to support him. He's not denigrated for liking to go to the library. People might, you get a sense the way they play it that, yeah, maybe people don't know exactly how to interact with him, but that's not a function of them hating him or something. It's a function of them really being impressed with him and wanting to support him to go out and go to college, in this case, and become a mechanical engineer.
It's the 50s. It's not the 80s.
Yeah.
Nerds are cool.
Nerds are super cool.
Well, that actually, I might as well. I'll come back to 10.
Yeah,
then.
we got to get back to 9. Does 9 come after? Does 10 come after 9?
How many do we have? Did we go back to 6 again?
No, we're skipping 10 to go to 11, but we're going to come back to 10 because 11 relates directly.
11 is really 10.
11, yes. So 11 relates directly to what Patrick said, where Tamir was emotional about Jack not being able to afford college. Because basically when Jack comes out, it's like, oh yeah, I'm not going to college. Tamir is visibly upset. She's like, what? Why aren't you doing that? Why aren't you going to college? And he's all like, well, blah, 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 blah. And then she's like, well, what are you going to do? So like,
what's even going to happen?
Do some
now, of course, the whole selling the Velcro to give Jack the money was like the capstone of the episode, as Tamir finally learned the value of humanity. But, and so it's not like a faulty... I'm not saying any of these are faulty, but it was her. She got emotional when she found out Jack
I agree. And I think it's an excellent... It's an excellent example of how you can show rather than tell character growth.
Yeah.
Because at this point, we've already seen her, warm up to Jack a little bit, warm up to Maggie, warm up to some of these other people. But then there's a threat. When there's a threat to somebody she's grown close to, and she wants to mitigate that threat, in this case, the threat against Jack's future. And so she has to make a choice to take action to mitigate that threat when she does not need to. And in fact, it puts her at risk because she's got to get on a train. She's got to interact with an urban environment, right? So it's such a great example of how you can demonstrate how somebody has moved in terms of their character development over the course of the episode, without having the exposition of her standing there explaining, to her colleagues, well, the thing is I really liked the kid and I thought he should go to college.
Right. Okay, so we're going to go back to 10, which is 4, but now is actually 3.
I thought it was 11 now.
No, he said we went to 11 before. That previous
10.
one was 11.
Then 10 turned to 11 though, so 11 is 10, but which means it's 4, but it's actually, because we switched them, it's 3.
This is like that whole string theory, multi-dimensional, thing.
So
this is very advanced.
It is. Thank you. I'm glad you were smart enough to recognize that. You're a very intelligent person.
Oh, thanks, man.
Mestral lies to Tamir about. Oh wait, I already said that one about getting a waveform discriminator. Jeez, I've confused myself.
That really was number 4.
Mestral is so visibly worried about the humans in the collapsed mind that he is willing to break the super rule about interfering with pre-warp cultures. Now, super rule. Star Trek, what's interesting is Star Trek seems to go either way on this kind of resolution. Because Mestral ends up helping the trapped miners, even though Tamir is like, no, dude, no, you can't do that, dude. No, dude. But then she not only lets him do it, she ends up helping him, because I guess she's like, well, if he's going to do it and I'm going to let him, then I guess I better go full force with it. But this kind of interference dilemma, like, it seems like they could have easily, in this episode, just let all the humans die to make a different point in the episode. And different Star Trek episodes kind of go back and forth on how they would treat the scenario of, should he rescue him, should he not?
That TNG episode comes up a lot with Worf's brother. I'm forgetting what it's called, Homer or something. I can't remember the name. But where Worf's brother uses the holodeck to transfer people, pre-warp people from a planet that's about to get vaporized by a star. So
Isn't that an insurrection?
No, it is Insurrection is very similar
Yeah.
to that. It uses a similar conceit. But in the case of this
I was making a
episode-
joke about Insurrection being silly.
In the case of this episode, one of the problems people cite with that episode is, why are Picard and Riker and literally everyone on the ship totally down to be like, oh yeah, it's a real shame. All those pre-warp people are going to be vaporized and their entire civilization will be dead, but we can't do anything about it because of the Prime Directive. Even though presumably the point of the Prime Directive is not to allow people to die, but to avoid interfering with the natural evolution of their society in such a way that you skew them going one direction or another, which that's a supportable,
because you got all those other episodes where they get around the Prime Directive.
Yeah, to help people not die. Right? I mean, even in Generations, because I don't think the Viridian 3 planet in Generations, I can't remember. I don't think those were warp people, and they totally saved them. I mean, granted, they saved them because somebody else was. The Prime Directive gets complicated and muddy because it's like, all right, so somebody did something that's going to cause a planet to get destroyed. Mm-hmm. So then the question is, well, does the Prime Directive apply or not? Well, I guess it depends on who the person was. Was the person a Starfleet officer? Yes. Then no, it doesn't. If it was just some guy, well, then that guy was going to do that.
Yeah, right.
So that's the natural course of evolution. Is they were supposed to get vaporized by some crazy motherfucker with some crazy plan.
Yeah. Some Ayn Rand shit.
Yeah, I know.
All right, so what number are we on? Like 7, 8, 15?
We're on number
12.
We're on number no, we're on wow, you're right, Jesse. We are on 12.
Hell yeah, baby.
Tamir lied to the fucking high command about Mestral.
And so did Strawn, by implication.
Yeah, exactly. Saying that
I don't think the Vulcan High Command's like the Klingon High Command.
But
I think
the
you can lie to
point,
those guys.
the point is like that was done out of emotion. That's this whole list about emotions, because saying that he died and that they cremated him. So they did that out of emotion for their friend and colleague. If it was just strictly, on business associates, they would have said, yeah, this guy jetted, but they had pity for him. They liked him. They didn't want to see him get fucked up. They saw the points he was making. So maybe you could say it was based in some kind of logic to save humanity, but they still lied to the high command, and that's a move of intense rebellion by a Vulcan, I would think, and that would be fueled by some kind of emotion. And anyways, as a side note, how's he supposed to now report his findings? Because
I don't think he cares.
Yeah, it's like why he watched TV to do research. He just wanted to watch the cowboy show and the I Love Lucy. And it's like here, he's like, yeah, it's not even, so you can't even say that they were like, oh, well, he's going to make a lot of great discoveries. It's logical to let him do it. He just wants to go play in the garden, So isn't that how it goes?
Playing in the garden, that old phrase.
Yeah.
That common phrase. That common United States, North American phrase, go play in the garden.
Go play as opposed to the United States, South American phrase.
That doesn't change anything for him. That just means that he's not going to
he's still learning shit.
Send a bunch of stuff back to the Vulcan Science Academy.
But consider this.
But okay,
go ahead.
Okay, but the whole point is it was an emotional move because they just let him go. It was their responsibility to report what happened to their crewmate, and they lied to the high command and saying they cremated him.
And again, as you noted, we are in a position to think that's awesome that they did that because we're positioned to agree with Mestral and agree with their things. But you could argue
because we're humanocentric.
They're breaking the rules, man.
Right? They're breaking the rules, and they said
they're breaking the law.
And when she said we cremated him, it's like there's no chance of reporting the findings unless he like leaves like little. I don't know. There's no way.
No, he can still report the findings. He could save him up for 150 years, but just bank on the future people being like, okay, oh, you got us.
Yeah.
After first contact, he could have been like, hey,
I was gonna, because he would have been if he survived World War III.
He was still around. He could have still been around
and didn't have any other accidents. That he would have been around when there was the actual, like the official first contact.
I think if they were gonna lie, it would have been more logical to say, oh, he ran off and we couldn't find him. That way, he could appear in the future.
Dude ran off, couldn't find him.
Yeah,
dude just totally ran off.
Dude just took off.
Completely illogical.
Dude freaked out.
Completely illogical. We didn't know what was going on.
He grabbed like 10 boxes of fish sticks and ran the fuck off.
Frozen fish sticks.
Well, that way, at least when he comes back to report his findings, they can, which we've established he probably isn't going to do that. But if he
They'd be
were
like,
to do that,
you the one who ran off?
Yeah.
You ran off?
Maybe the Vulcan, maybe Strawn and Tamir were worried about looking incompetent because of their pride, which would also be illogical. Unless it meant they lost their jobs.
Why are you calling in now? I ran out of fish sticks.
Okay.
Actually, I didn't, but they got warm. Because, for some cryogenic. Never mind.
Yeah.
Oh, real quick, though. The thing about Mestral, like, he is throughout this episode positioned as the good guy, as the guy we should, as the character that we should identify with, and that largely the thematic arguments around character development for both, particularly Tamir, but also Strawn, are in the orbit of Mestral, right? Great. Except at the very end, when he says, I think I'll stay, and they have the little bit of an argument, and then Tamir is like, oh, you're going to stay for Maggie. And he's like, oh no, I'm going to go to one of the big cities.
Yeah.
It both made perfect sense that he'd want to do that, but it does undercut. It's like, wait, she's clearly into you. You seem to be into her. You're totally leading her on for experimental reasons.
Yeah.
Psychological experiments. And then you're going to fuck. Her husband left her.
Yeah.
This is a woman who was abandoned by her husband. She probably hasn't. She talks about not having kissed a guy in a million years, and now she gets emotionally attached to this person who returns in some form that affection. And he's like, I'm going to fucking Detroit City. I'm gonna go to one of the bigger cities.
That is kind of a bummer.
You think her husband was one of those guys that just like decided to start over? He was like, I'm going to abandon my family.
I think her husband was.
Like a family destroyer.
No. Because then if he was a family destroyer, if he was a family destroyer, he would have killed him.
Yeah.
I think the only logical conclusion is that her husband was a Ferengi. This happened to her twice.
Only Ferengis would move to Phoenix.
This happened to her twice. She got married.
Her husband was a Ferengi.
And it might have been, they in the Deep Space Nine episode, Little Green Men, where they go back to the Roswell.
They used to call her Naked Maggie.
Her husband wouldn't let her wear any clothes.
Yeah, my husband, I don't know. He just wouldn't let me wear clothes.
He doesn't like clothes.
And he was always shuffling about and making all sorts of weird yes. Because he was an old school Ferengi. He wasn't Quark style Ferengi.
Laws of acquisition.
Yeah. So, all right. Are there any more? There's one more.
So the number one in no particular order.
Or number 13.
The number one or 13.
Possibly number 7.
B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K, L. M? Letter M? I don't know.
Letter M.
Letter M. T'Pol, I'm talking about T'Pol, not Tamir. She's being coy about whether or not her story was true. Being coy is a form of lying and is illogical. That's what I say.
Write us in at feedback@itsgotstartrek.com and tell us if you think that being coy is a form of lying.
She was at least having too much fun She was having too much fun.
She likes fucking with these guys, but don't forget, as we said, they're fucking with her the whole time. They're all like, your culture's stupid. The food you eat is stupid. The way you drink is stupid.
You're gonna drink some wine?
You wouldn't give us fucking Warp 5. You guys are pieces of shit.
Yeah.
It's like, well, maybe you didn't deserve Warp 5,
I know,
Trip.
right?
You're gonna act like that.
You're gonna act like that.
Okay. Well, special mention goes to T'Pol's midriff-bearing jammies.
Yeah, and I really
And the way she like walked out without any shoes on, she was all like prancing around.
Yeah.
I was wondering whether to mention that in the earlier discussion about overly sexualizing, but then
Because she's worn those jammies before.
yeah, but that doesn't
Yeah.
absolve the producers.
No, it
It's like,
doesn't.
they always these Vulcan silk jammies.
Yeah, and were those tight leather, the history Vulcans? They were wearing some tight leather looking clothing.
They were it was. Do you mean tight as in tight, or tight as in form fitting?
It was form fitting, but it was also kind of.
Because I just thought they were tight.
They were kind of tight though.
Kinda
I thought they were dope.
Yeah, they were pretty dope.
They weren't obviously leather, but they looked like leather.
They weren't quite rad, but they were dope, and they were for sure tight.
They fit well.
A little bit gnarly.
Yeah, they were a little bit gnarly, especially after they wore them for fucking 2 weeks in the woods.
Oh, gross!
It was a gnarly leather.
Vulcans get shit stains sometimes.
Even Vulcans go poo poo. Yes.
All right,
Everybody.
Yeah, I was thinking of mentioning that in but I don't know. It's hard to say because it is a TV show. Of course, you're gonna have fun sexual elements, and like I said, the problem I had with the silhouette nipples was partly because I felt guilty because I liked seeing the silhouette nipples, partly because it's just a ridiculous, nonsensical, unnecessary over sexualization. On the other hand, one can imagine, even though it's like, do you expect women to dress in super silky stuff? Yeah, no. All right. She should be wearing like comfy flannels and some big goofy slippers.
Yeah,
that's what she would be wearing.
Should be wearing some, but their pride won't let her.
But
and the sex won't let her too.
That being said, it's like, okay, at least it's in she's in her bedroom and she's getting ready for bed, so she's wearing pajamas, and sometimes people take out ancestral heirlooms that they for some reason took along on a galactic trip.
Yeah,
just before they go to sleep.
Sentimentality. I forgot to mention that part. Sentimentality.
Double bonus
Totally
time.
illogical.
Number
Sentimentality
18.
is illogical.
It's illogical. Now, I will give them credit. The Vulcans were surprisingly unemotional when they were finally contacted by high command or whatever after all the time. Did they actually say how long they spent down on Earth? Probably like 6 months or something.
It was many months because there was a point where they're like 3 months later.
Yeah, right. So now they were emotional. You could see in their face that they were kind of like, oh boy, like as Vulcans do. But the ratio of
as Vulcans do.
As Vulcans do, right? But the ratio of emotion to important moment was much lower in that scene than it was in other instances of the episode. So they did a good job considering, like, because I would have lost my shit probably, Mm-hmm. So I give them credit. I give the Vulcans credit.
Good for you. Good for you.
Good.
All right. So I think we should start wrapping things up, get into any odds and ends that you might have.
Not one of those Vulcans mentioned the smell of humans.
Good point.
That's a very good point.
And those look like some smelly humans.
Yeah, that would be the smelliest place. That would be a smelly place.
Like maybe the only time they ever mentioned the smell of humans was in that one episode of Enterprise.
There's a few episodes where they mention the smell in the first season. I think, and occasionally there'll be some comment where they'll have like Ambassador Saval talking to Paul, and he'll be like, how did you get used to the smell?
Is it because we eat more meat than the Vulcans? Is that why we smell?
They're just making shit up.
They're just making shit up because they're Vulcans. Vulcans has been making shit up for hundreds of years.
Yeah. Here's not an end. Reed, Phlox, Mayweather, and Sato do not
completely
appear
not
in this episode. This is a three-hander in both situations.
Yeah.
Three characters in each scenario.
These are the only characters you care about. So.
Yeah. Well, when Maggie goes to Mistral in the car, I'm doing another odd and end. Did we have anything more to say about the last one?
No, that was it.
Okay. When Maggie was in the car making out with snogging, as Patrick said, Mistral, when she goes, "Will I see you later?" He all nods like a weird little boy. He's like, he wants to spend some more time with Mama. So, and then she says after they kiss. She was like, I thought it'd be more than pleasant. And then he goes, I did say very pleasant. And he looked like Data. I swear to God, he made a Data face when he said that.
I agree with you 100%.
Yeah, right on.
I liked when she said, I don't know why this popped out of me. I liked when she said, we had an accident with our vehicle outside your town. Something about that. It was like she's technically telling the truth.
Right.
And
she has to be as weird about it as possible.
yes, it almost had like an X-Files vibe to it or something.
It's like, well, I can give you a lift to blah 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 blah.
She's like, no,
no.
Fuck you.
Oh, I wanted to say about an odd and end. I wanted to say that guy when he was playing pool with Miss Straw for the first time. He goes, "Tough break." And like, you say tough break to someone because they had a hard time.
It's a pool term.
It's pool.
It's actually a
It's
pool.
pool.
That's where it
'Cause he
comes
had a tough
from.
break.
Billiards.
Incidentally, I thought there was a cool transition when it showed that dude all winning all the pool shots, like he was like cleaning house. Then without warning, it switches to Mistral suddenly cleaning house, sort of implying that somewhere in the middle of the montage, Mistral kind of took over. It was like, it surprised me. I thought it was cool.
The other fellow, missed a shot, so then Mistral took over.
Did they show him missing a shot, though?
I don't recall it.
See,
but
that's
the
what-
implication was there. I think maybe they showed a reaction shot of him or something. Man.
I think it was like, because I remember being surprised, like, when did that happen? And I thought that was cool. It kind of like, whoa, now he's winning.
If you're a listener from someplace other than North America, pool is billiards.
Well, I was going to say, wouldn't it be awesome?
Snooker is something else.
Snooker's a
Snooker's
different
different. And I was going to say,
Different game.
going back to the U.S. centric thing. What if this was back in 1959? Northern England, and then they could be playing snooker, and they could be working in the bog mines or whatever they got up there.
They could be actual miners.
Right, as in we have a lot of listeners in England. We have a lot of listeners in Northern England, in the various regions of Northern England. So if and you we had a letter last week from somebody who's from South Ribble.
There's a guy from Newcastle.
And there's a Gibberkiss from Newcastle. Yeah, Newcastle upon Tyne. So you write us and let us in. I did not mean
As
to
opposed to that other Newcastle.
Yeah, tell us what would people have been mining back then? I am being jokey around when I say they were bog miners because I know that's not appropriate.
That's an Irish thing.
Yeah, that's those are elsewhere in the mirrors. But
it's coal.
But maybe coal. Anyway, you write us in and let us know. Inform us.
Tin.
They could totally warp back to like one of your friends with an awesome basement's like house, and you could play bumper pool and Commodore 64.
And Commodore 64.
Yeah.
Or
you could be knocking down your door to be playing your Commodore 64.
Oh shit!
If we're writing dream scenarios, have the entire plot center around an air hockey tournament.
Whoa, that'd be pretty.
In 1978.
There you go. Now you're thinking.
And then it would be more appropriate to dress DePaul in ridiculous, short skirts and things like that.
Yeah. Damn, Captain.
She could be roller skating around.
Put one over on us.
DePaul could be all roller skating.
Roller skating to Paul. Oh my gosh.
It could have been so much worse.
That would end all. I was just. Oh wait, no. Did you have another odd and end? Anyone?
No.
Did anyone have any more odds and ends?
I mean, we should shut things down.
Yeah.
For a while. I mean,
I think we got this one.
We got this in the bag.
I was going to make a suggestion. I think we need to make more hot takes based on personal experience.
Hot snakes.
We need more hot takes based on personal experience.
You mean on the podcast?
Yeah, because
you're making this argument because you're desperate to reveal one of these such hot takes.
No, I'm not. I have got nothing to back it up.
Like when you went,
it was just
you didn't
I
go
don't
back
have
to
any
the
hot
50s.
takes.
You didn't go back to the 50s in a time machine.
You never got into a cave
88
in
88 miles per hour
in a coal mine.
I never had a hot take. If that's what you're asking.
You've never had a hot take ever?
Never. Never. It's never happened.
Hot take.
But my point really was audiences like to feel like they're friends with us. They want to be our friend. And the only way they can be our friend is if we make a hot take, but not just a hot take, but a hot take based on personal experience.
But what if our personal experience sort of either doesn't speak to the listener or in fact revolts them?
That's the risk you got to take, and that's why it endears the ones it does connect
Good
with
point.
even more.
Fair point.
Too generic, it just feels fake and synthetic. Who wants a synthetic brownie? Not me.
It got me thinking about
synthetic brownie.
What
is this synthetic brownie?
It's not for me though. I'll tell you that much.
Well, so what we'll do is we'll get set to retire back to our little holes that we live in during the week and ruminate on more Star Trek.
I only have one light.
We don't know what we'll be talking about next week.
Ruminate has nothing to do with being in a room.
No.
It has something to do with being a ruminant, maybe. A ruminant? A ruminant.
I think it's spelled with a U.
Ruminantary?
Ruminant? I don't know if those words
ruminantary
are associated. Anyway, we will ruminate on hot takes. We will ruminate on some form of Star Trek.
I think we're going to figure out what a hot take is.
Everybody learned in first grade happened in Bozeman, Montana. Every American learned in first grade happened in Bozeman, Montana.
We will learn about hot cakes.
I've been there.
Hot takes, hot cakes. and Star Trek. In all likelihood, I'm guessing we'll do a TOS episode.
Hell yeah.
I just really wanted to ask, Carbon Creek, do you think there's any kind of meaning behind that name?
It's a made-up name. There's a Carbon Creek in California.
There you go. That's probably
There's
that's
no
probably all
Carbon
there is
Creek,
to it.
Pennsylvania.
And
It's
this
probably
was
like
filmed in California.
Springfield, Pennsylvania.
Pennsylvania.
Yeah. Okay.
Anything else, or does that do it for us this week on the It's Got Star Trek podcast? Other than our, informing you can get to Twitter at It's Got Star Trek. You can get to us on Instagram at It's Got Star Trek. You can get to us on Facebook. Just type in It's Got Star Trek. Type it in anywhere. It's going to show up. YouTube. People are digging, it's always so funny, which, some of our videos on YouTube, you just get a few hits. Some of them, 4,000 or 5,000 hits.
Yeah.
It's like, all right.
I think maybe
Whatever floats your boat.
Maybe it just comes down to what words you use in the title.
It's
Maybe
always
that's all
about
we use
words.
Apple
That's all
Podcasts.
matters.
Apple
Apple Podcast.
Yeah, we can say Apple Podcasts, Stitcher,
But mostly
Spotify,
Apple Podcast.
Google Podcasts. So anyway, these are the places you can find us.
I was reading a story today about how a woman was arrested because she went to a public school and tried to promote her Instagram account to all the kids.
She was in her 20s. Some chick that was like 28 or something.
And the fact that they arrested her is going to get her followers.
Yeah,
That's the upsetting thing about
so maybe
all
we
that.
should. Well, we shouldn't try that. I don't.
All right,
think.
so
There's no such thing as bad publicity.
We're going to
Well,
discuss. We're going to discuss
that
this week.
Epstein character might tell you differently.
This week we're going to discuss Dan's plan. Just the three of us will
And the
just
Duke of
privately
York.
discuss Dan's plan about us showing up at a school and screaming at children until we get arrested as a marketing mechanism.
Screaming at children.
We're kind of old school, but we gotta get with the times.
Hey,
Hey, it's got Star. Hey, kids, you like Star Trek?
come here.
You like Star Trek?
Come here.
Come
It's
here,
got
kid.
Star Trek. Get in this barrel. It's got Star
In
Trek
this
in
barrel.
Jordy,
Not even get in my van. Get in this barrel over here.
Data.
there. Well, yeah, because you got to put a kid in each barrel, and then you put the barrels into the van.
Okay.
Because
that's-
COVID times.
I don't
It's still
know.
COVID times. I
don't
know this is
I
never Green
forgot.
Podcast, but it's COVID times.
I don't know.
I think you
know.
could fit
Seal the children in the barrel.
about 8 to 12 barrels. I think you
8
can fit
to
into
8 to
your
12
van.
barrels of children. All right. Well, anyway,
Some of them barrels, you can fit 2 kids in some of them barrels.
We'll discuss.
Okay.
We'll discuss all that, and you'll find out what the resolution to that was. When,
That's if they're in whole pieces.
Exactly.
Whole pieces.
As you
We
can-
will not be cutting any kids in half.
No, we'll be cutting them into fourths.
As you can see, there's a lot for us to discuss between now and next week.
No hot takes.
There
No
will
hot
a
takes.
lot will happen.
So in the meantime, keep an eye on social media to learn what episode we'll be talking next week, so you can do your homework and watch the episode,
It'll
and then
be
you
a
can download the
Star
episode.
Trek
You can download the episode and listen to the episode, and it's a whole ecosystem. It's a whole ecosystem. Big Star Trek pushes. They tell us which episode to push because they're like, we like people to. We want everybody to be watching TOS this week.
Oh yeah, we're totally
This
corrupt
week,
about it.
We gotta, yeah, and that's why we're corrupt but transparent.
Mm-hmm.
Like there was trust but verify with the Soviets.
Mm-hmm.
We talked about the Cold War earlier. For us, it's corrupt but transparent. That's our philosophy.
It makes us lovable
Yes, to some.
to some.
Rod Roddenberry.
That'll do it for us this week, and you'll be hearing from us next week.
Hell yeah,
next
dude.
Saturday. Have a good one.
Later.
Good night.
Hearing from my lawyers.
Where are you going?
To the ship.
Why?
This antenna is inadequate. I believe I can use a waveform discriminator to enhance it.
It'll be safer to go after dark. We can't risk being followed.
I need to go now. I Love Lucy is on tonight.